Look closely at this ceiling. Those circles look decorative. They aren't. Each one is the bottom of an ordinary clay pot, permanently buried inside a concrete roof. And at first, that sounds like a terrible idea. A roof is supposed to carry weight, resist weather, and remain standing for decades. So why would anyone deliberately remove concrete and replace it with something hollow? Because these pots are not replacing the concrete doing the most important work. They are replacing weight the roof may never have needed in the first place. Do it correctly, and the result is surprising. The roof can use less concrete. It can place a smaller load on the structure below. And, in the right climate, it can slow part of the heat moving toward the rooms underneath. One small change. Three very different consequences. The system is known as a filler slab. The filler can be made from clay pots, tiles, hollow blocks, or other lightweight units. Its job is not to carry the building by itself. Its job is to occupy space without filling every centimeter of that space with heavy concrete. One of the people most closely associated with this technique in India was the British-born architect Laurie Baker. Baker spent much of his career challenging a basic assumption of modern construction, that a better building must use more expensive materials, more concrete, and more energy. His buildings began with a different question. What could local materials accomplish if they were placed more intelligently? In the hot, humid climate of Kerala, that question affected more than construction cost. It also affected whether the rooms below the roof remain comfortable. An exposed concrete roof spends the day absorbing energy from the sun. The surface heats first, then that heat gradually moves through the slab. By late afternoon, the underside of the roof can begin warming the room below, and the problem does not necessarily disappear when the sun goes down. Concrete can store a considerable amount of thermal energy. So while the outdoor air begins to cool, the roof may continue releasing heat into the building. The conventional answer is mechanical cooling. Baker's answer began one step earlier. Before spending energy to remove the heat, could the roof be redesigned to let less of it through? And could it do that while using less material rather than more? To understand how an empty clay pot could help answer both questions, we need to look inside a concrete slab. Not at the concrete itself, but at the invisible forces passing through it. A concrete slab may look completely still, but the moment it spans across a room, gravity begins trying to bend it. The movement is far too small to see. The forces inside it are not. Imagine a shelf supported only at its ends. Place weight in the middle, and the shelf begins to sag. As it bends, the material near the top is pushed together. Engineers call this compression. At the bottom, the opposite happens. The material is pulled apart. That is tension. Concrete handles compression extremely well, but it is much less capable when tension tries to pull it apart. That is why a concrete roof is not made from concrete alone. Steel reinforcement is placed where tensile stresses are expected to develop. The concrete carries compression, while the steel helps resist tension. Together, they allow a relatively thin slab to span across an open room without collapsing under its own weight. But this creates an interesting question. If the upper region of the slab is doing most of the compression work, and the reinforcement is carrying much of the tension below, does every space between them need to be filled with solid concrete? The answer is not a simple no. Concrete around the reinforcement still performs essential jobs. It bonds with the steel, it transfers forces, it protects the bars from fire, moisture, and corrosion, and it helps the slab behave as one continuous structural element. Remove material from the wrong place, and the slab can crack or fail completely. But when an engineer maps the forces correctly, some regions can be replaced by lightweight, non-structural filler, while reinforced concrete remains along the load-carrying paths. Instead of one continuous mass, the roof becomes a network of reinforced ribs connected by a concrete layer above. The clay pots sit between those ribs. They do not hold the roof up. They reserve spaces where solid concrete has been deliberately left out. This reduces the slab's dead load, the permanent weight the structure must carry every second of its life, and reducing that weight can produce a chain reaction. A lighter slab places less demand on its supporting beams, columns, walls, and foundations. Depending on the design, that can reduce material requirements beyond the roof itself, but the exact savings are never guaranteed by the presence of clay pots alone. The span of the room matters, the loads matter, the reinforcement layout matters, even the size and spacing of the fillers matter. This is not a normal slab with random objects buried inside it. It is a structural system that must be designed around the spaces those objects create. And once the concrete has hardened, those spaces begin performing a second job, one that has nothing to do with carrying weight. They begin changing the path taken by heat. Heat moves through a solid concrete roof surprisingly easily. When sunlight strikes the upper surface, part of that energy is reflected, but much of it is absorbed. The surface becomes hotter than the surrounding air, sometimes by a considerable margin. That energy then begins moving through the slab by conduction. In a conventional solid roof, the heat encounters one continuous path of dense material. The journey is not immediate. Concrete has substantial thermal mass, so it absorbs and stores energy as its temperature rises. That creates a delay between the hottest moment on the roof and the arrival of that heat at the ceiling below. In some climates, that delay can be useful. If the heat arrives after outdoor temperatures have fallen, ventilation may help remove it. But in a hot, humid region where the evening remains warm, the same stored energy can prolong discomfort well into the night. A filler slab interrupts this continuous mass. Instead of traveling through solid concrete across the entire roof, heat repeatedly encounters hollow clay units and the air sealed inside them. Still air conducts heat far less effectively than dense concrete, but the pots do not create a perfect insulating blanket. Heat can still move through the concrete ribs, the upper layer of the slab, and any other solid connection crossing the roof. Engineers call these more conductive paths thermal bridges. So the roof does not stop heat, it changes how easily, how evenly, and how quickly that heat can travel downward. And this is where many dramatic claims about clay pot roofs become misleading. A lower ceiling surface temperature is not automatically the same as an equal reduction in room air temperature. The result depends on the pot geometry, the thickness of the concrete, the roof finish, the amount of direct sunlight, ventilation, humidity, and the thermal behavior of the rest of the building. In one recent controlled comparison, a roof incorporating earthen pots reduced the room temperature by a little over 2 degrees Celsius compared with an untreated concrete roof. 2 degrees may sound modest, but thermal comfort does not require a technology to turn a hot room into a refrigerator. Even a small reduction in indoor temperature can change how often cooling equipment is needed, how hard it must work, and whether occupants can remain comfortable with fans and ventilation alone. The most important point is not that every filler slab produces the same number. It is that one decision can address two different problems at once. Removing unnecessary mass can reduce structural demand. Replacing part of that mass with hollow units can also increase resistance to heat flow. Less weight above, less heat below. And for Laurie Baker, there was a third advantage that mattered just as much. The materials could come from the communities building the roof. Laurie Baker did not arrive in India looking for a new kind of concrete roof. He arrived in 1945, shortly after the Second World War, and spent years working in remote regions where conventional construction resources were often scarce. Those conditions changed the way he thought about architecture. A building could not depend on materials that were expensive, difficult to transport, or unfamiliar to the people expected to construct it. It had to respond to the climate. It had to respect the available budget. And whenever possible, it had to use materials and skills already present in the community. Baker later made Kerala his home. There, he developed an architectural language built around exposed brick, shaded openings, perforated walls, careful ventilation, and an almost relentless effort to eliminate waste. His buildings were not cheap because they were careless. They were economical because every material was expected to justify its presence. That philosophy made the conventional concrete slab an obvious target. Cement and steel required money and energy. Their weight demanded additional support below. And under intense sunlight, a solid exposed roof could contribute to overheating inside. A filler slab offered a way to address all three concerns. Keep reinforced concrete where the load path required it. Remove part of the mass between those paths. Then fill the remaining volume with something lighter and less expensive. In Kerala, the answer did not have to come from a specialized factory. Mangalore tiles, hollow clay units, and ordinary earthen pots were already being produced by local craftspeople. These objects were inexpensive, familiar, and available in large numbers. Once placed between the reinforcement, they could remain permanently inside the slab. From the room below, their exposed surfaces could also form a distinctive ceiling pattern, reducing the need to hide everything beneath another decorative finish. But this was never simply a matter of arranging pots and pouring concrete around them. The position of every filler had to respect the reinforcement layout. Space had to remain for the concrete ribs. Electrical fittings had to be planned before the pour, and the fillers had to remain stable while wet concrete was placed around them. The pots also had to be prepared correctly. Dry, porous clay can draw water from fresh concrete that can interfere with curing near the interface, so the units are commonly wetted before the pour. Concrete still needs sufficient cover around the reinforcement. Poor spacing, inadequate consolidation, or careless waterproofing can create problems that remain hidden until cracking or corrosion appears years later. The simplicity is real, but so is the precision it demands. Baker helped demonstrate that low-cost construction did not have to mean low-quality construction. It could mean using less material, more local knowledge, and better judgment. Decades later, another Indian architect would push that same idea in a more experimental direction and place it on one of architecture's largest international stages. The architect was Anupama Kundu. In 2000, Kundu completed a home in Auroville known as Wall House. Like Baker, she treated local materials and local labor as design opportunities rather than limitations. But Wall House did more than repeat the appearance of Baker's buildings. It turned the logic of low-material construction into an architectural experiment of its own. Terracotta elements, exposed masonry, handmade components, and carefully placed openings were integrated into the building rather than hidden behind layers of finish. The construction process became part of the architecture. 12 years later, Wall House appeared again, this time thousands of kilometers away. For the 2012 Venice Architecture Biennale, Kundu and her team constructed a full-scale version of the house. The project placed an important argument in front of an international audience. A building assembled with modest materials and labor-intensive techniques did not have to represent a step backward. Under the right conditions, it could offer a different kind of technological progress, one based on resource efficiency, adaptability, and knowledge of place. Yet the instinct behind hollow clay construction is far older than either Baker or Kundu. Nearly 2,000 years ago, builders across parts of the Mediterranean used small interlocking terracotta tubes to form lightweight vaults. These elements are now known as tubi fitili. Each tube was open at one end and narrowed at the other, allowing it to fit into the next piece. Builders joined them one by one, gradually forming an arch across the space below. Once covered with mortar, the tubes became a permanent framework for the vault. They reduced the amount of heavy material required overhead and limited the need for massive temporary timber formwork during construction. Examples have been found across North Africa, Italy, Spain, and as far north as Britain, but this is where an important distinction must be made. A Roman terracotta tube vault was not an ancient reinforced concrete filler slab. The tubes helped create the curved structural form itself. In a modern filler slab, the primary load-carrying system is reinforced concrete, while the clay units occupy selected spaces between its ribs. The technologies are different, but they reveal the same recurring engineering instinct. When a roof becomes too heavy, do not automatically add more structure. First, ask whether geometry and empty space can remove weight without removing function. That principle never disappeared. In fact, modern construction uses it on a massive scale. It simply stopped looking like a row of handmade clay pots. Walk through a modern construction site in Europe or North America, and you may never see a clay pot placed inside a concrete floor, but you may see the same underlying idea everywhere. Hollow core planks are precast concrete elements containing long, continuous voids. Voided slabs use hollow plastic forms to remove concrete from selected regions inside a floor. Ribbed slabs and waffle slabs concentrate material along a network of load-carrying beams, leaving the spaces between them lighter. Different materials, different manufacturing methods, the same basic question. Where does the structure need solid material and where can it function with empty space? So the absence of clay pots in Western buildings does not mean Western engineers rejected the principle. In many cases, industry replaced a local craft solution with a standardized factory product. That difference begins with labor. A traditional clay pot filler slab requires workers to position many individual units between the reinforcement. The fillers must be kept away from critical reinforcement, secured against movement, and protected while concrete is placed around them. That work can make economic sense where suitable clay products are inexpensive and skilled labor is locally available. Move the same process to a market where construction labor is extremely expensive and the calculation changes. The concrete saved by each pot may be worth less than the time required to purchase, prepare, position, and inspect it. Supply chains create a second barrier. For a structural system, hundreds of fillers cannot simply look similar. Their dimensions, strength, absorption, and behavior during construction need to be sufficiently predictable. A factory-made void, former, or precast plank arrives with defined specifications and established quality control. An assortment of locally purchased pots may not. Then there is approval. Building codes do not necessarily prohibit an unfamiliar structural system, but an engineer may have to demonstrate that it provides the required strength, fire resistance, durability, and safety. That may require additional calculations, documentation, material testing, or review by the local authority. None of those steps makes the system impossible, but each one adds cost, uncertainty, and time to a method chosen primarily because it is supposed to save cost. Developers tend to prefer systems that engineers, contractors, insurers, and building officials already understand. Clay pot filler slabs therefore face an unusual problem. The engineering principle is not obsolete. The local economic system that made the clay pot version attractive simply does not exist everywhere. And even where the economics work, one final question remains: will the roof remain safe and dry for the entire life of the building? The greatest long-term threat to a concrete roof is often not the weight placed above it. It is water finding a path inside. Reinforcing steel survives inside concrete, partly because the surrounding material creates a highly alkaline environment that helps protect it from corrosion. But that protection depends on good concrete, sufficient cover, controlled cracking, and effective waterproofing. If water and oxygen repeatedly reach the reinforcement, corrosion can begin. Rust occupies more volume than the original steel. As it expands, it pushes against the concrete surrounding the bar. Over time, that pressure can create cracks, loosen the concrete cover, and accelerate further water penetration. A filler slab does not automatically create this problem, but poor detailing can make it harder to detect and harder to repair. If a filler is placed too close to the reinforcement, the concrete cover between them may become too thin. If wet concrete does not completely fill the narrow spaces around the bars, hidden voids can remain. If the roof membrane fails, porous clay may absorb moisture and keep parts of the assembly damp for longer. In climates exposed to freezing, moisture inside porous materials introduces another concern. Water expands when it freezes. Repeated freeze and thaw cycles can damage saturated clay or surrounding concrete if the materials and detailing are unsuitable. But that does not mean every filler slab north of the tropics is destined to fail. The real question is whether the entire roof assembly has been designed for its climate, exposure, and expected service life. Material selection matters, drainage matters, waterproofing matters, inspection and maintenance matter, and, above all, structural design matters. A clay pot may be ordinary. A load-bearing roof is not. The spacing of the ribs, the depth of the slab, the amount of reinforcement, the concrete strength, and the loads above must all be calculated for the individual building. Copying the visible pattern from a photograph is not engineering, and this is not a weekend experiment to attempt above an occupied room. A filler slab should be designed by a qualified structural professional and built by people who understand the system. Done badly, its internal problems may remain invisible until the roof begins to crack. Done correctly, however, the fillers can remain protected inside the slab while the reinforced ribs perform the structural work around them. That difference is not created by the pot. It is created by the quality of the design and construction surrounding it. Which brings us back to the original question. Is burying empty clay pots inside a concrete roof actually a good idea? The answer is yes, but only when the idea is understood correctly. The clay pot is not a magical structural material. It does not make concrete stronger, and it does not cool every building by the same amount. Its value comes from occupying a space that does not need to be filled entirely with heavy concrete. Around that space, reinforced ribs carry the load. Inside it, trapped air can help resist the movement of heat. When local clay products are affordable, skilled labor is available, and the building has been designed for the system, the result can use less material and place less weight on the structure below. In a suitable climate, it may also improve thermal comfort and reduce part of the demand for mechanical cooling. But where labor is expensive, standardized fillers are unavailable or approval requires extensive additional work, an industrial hollow core or voided slab system may make far more sense. Laurie Baker's achievement was not proving that every roof should contain clay pots. It was demonstrating a more durable principle. Better construction does not always begin by adding a more advanced material. Sometimes it begins by identifying the material that never needed to be there. Less weight above, less heat below, and fewer resources spent filling space that could have remained empty. Not an ancient trick that defeated modern engineering, but a reminder of what good engineering has always tried to do. Put the right material in the right place, and nothing more. If you want to see how another ancient building system kept homes warm long after the fire went out, watch the next video on screen.